session up next called Best Practices for Project Directors. This is a new session, again, that we have not done in the past. And we really just wanted to take time this year and celebrate the successes of you all. There are some partners who are doing fantastic work with their projects and their documentation and everything involved with their grants. So we just wanted to highlight a few of those and a few of the best practices that we see from our end of things. If you weren't invited to participate in this section, it does not mean that you're not doing a great job. So please know that we value all of your partnerships as we move through and try to improve traffic safety in the state. So first, we are going to do buy-in. Buy-in is the acceptance and willingness to actively support and participate in something. Buy-in can include several different things. A couple of them are top-down support in your agency. Without the buy-in of your leadership, it is really difficult to get anything done on your grant. So if there's not buy-in at the top of your agency, that can be a problem in how your grant is implemented. Another type of buy-in is support from your stakeholders in your area. This can be local, state, or even national communities and or government. It's not always just our top government officials or top law enforcement officials, your chief or whoever. It can be simply people in your community who have buy-in in your mission of improving traffic safety. So the first partner I'd love to have help us out is going to be Jordan Evans with the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments. Jordan has been with ACOG for a number of years. ACOG has a program called Watch for Me OK that also helps fund. They work to increase the safety of bicyclists and pedestrians in 4 counties within central Oklahoma. Those include Logan, Cleveland, Canadian, and Oklahoma County. Their project recently received buy-in from Mayor Holt in Oklahoma City. And I've invited him, or we have invited him to talk about their work on that campaign, as well as other ways that he finds local buy-in or stakeholders to help in his efforts. Jordan, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, it's good
Great.
to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So like Jacqueline said, I'm Jordan with ACOG. We manage the Watch for Me OK bicycle and pedestrian safety campaign. This campaign was started way back in 2015, and then we sort of revamped it in 2020 with help, of course, from OHSO. This was really a big partnership with the city of Oklahoma City. They had started this campaign back then, and then we sort of worked with them to expand its reach, make it a regional campaign. And like Jacqueline said, we have gotten some good buy-in from community partners, both elected officials, other outside organizations, the city itself. So we've really been lucky in that and very fortunate for those partnerships. So what I'd say is sort of the big thing that we've noticed helps that buy-in is just being visible in the community, engaging local groups. So we have a number of groups here in the city that have a lot of attendance and are very active in the bicycling, pedestrian, running sort of sectors. So engaging with those groups, for example, Hyde and Go Bike is a local group that does a lot of organized rides. So we work with them and we'll give out helmets and talk to them about the importance of helmets. And this group is made up a lot of sort of local younger commuters, people who are sort of getting into biking but may not have the money to buy their own helmet. Maybe they just got their bike secondhand or something and they're just now getting into it. So this is a really important group to sort of get that connection with. And making these connections is sort of what helps us whenever we do go to people like the mayor asking for them to kind of promote our message. So we did do a Spotify ad with Mayor Holt where he talked about staying safe on the streets when we're driving, when we're walking, when we're biking, and kind of stressing that this is a shared responsibility that we all need to make sure that we're doing. Also, really, that message was really focusing on talking to drivers, especially since we can kind of have a very broad reach in that. We know most people on the roads are driving, so we want to make sure we're hitting that that group. When we went to Mayor asking for his help on this, we really wanted to connect our message with his message. So really one of the big things that he's been promoting is maps and the sales tax, better street, safer city. So we were able to connect bicycle and pedestrian safety with the infrastructure projects that the city has invested in. So talking about all of our new bicycle lanes, trails, sidewalks, and showing that there are people using these, we need to watch out for them and make sure they're safe. We did already have that connection with the city because this campaign was theirs and sort of switched over to ours. We had those connections with planning and public information, public works. So we were able to kind of get that connection pretty organically. We saw a lot of success with that Spotify ad. It ran for about a month. It had a lot of impressions, so we were really happy with that. We'll probably reuse it again in the future just because it was such a great partnership. Yeah, so I think that's about all I have. I'd be happy to take any questions on it.
Does anyone have any questions for Jordan's Watch For Me program? So Jordan, if I'm not mistaken, Watch For Me used to be just Watch For Me OKC. And then since you all revamped it in 2020, the OKC was dropped and it was just added as OK. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, we wanted to make sure that we could use the same campaign and same message throughout our region. So not just Oklahoma City, but in Edmond and Norman and Moore, Midwest City. And we also understood that we could also use this message in areas outside of our region. So just kind of leaving it as the OK made it pretty adaptable for places that if Enid wanted to pick up this message, they could do that without any issue.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of our favorite things about this project is that it can be used elsewhere. So project directors, feel free to follow Watch For Me OK on social media and share those messages. Even if you share someone else's message for traffic safety, that still counts as your agency's PI&E. So we'd really appreciate the coordination between projects to share each other's messages. I think that's a really great way to help that reach. So Jordan, thank you very much for talking about your project and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, next we've invited Christy Yokley with the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department to talk. She's been with Oklahoma County Sheriff for 22 years and just completed her 3rd year as one of the traffic safety educators under their highway safety grant. Sergeant Yokley works together with Sergeant Kirby to provide interactive educational displays and education to various groups throughout our state. She's worked really hard to develop techniques to earn buy-in from people from all walks of life, and she's here to talk to us today about that. Hi, Christy.
All right, hi. I'll just jump right in. When I first started, as it is now, some of our busiest months are obviously April and May, or March, April, May-ish, kind of September, October. But one of the big things that I was really proud to come up with was June and July, we didn't have a lot on the calendar. So I started thinking about where could we get some more partners in the community to do some things. And so I was able to get set up with the YMCA. And we've done it for the last, let's see, I guess we actually started in 20. They let us come in. They were one of our partners that we were fortunate that even though it was during the pandemic stuff, they just had smaller groups, but we got to start then, and we did it 21, and then this year they were pretty much back to full capacity. So we interacted with probably about 2,000 kids in June and July, and we did about 45 presentations in June and July alone, just for the YMCA. And so that was one of our big community buy-in that was turned out to be wonderful, because this year we always cover seat belts, and then this year we added, I try to do a second topic that is impactful for the kids, and so we did bicycle safety, and it was a great response. So that's one of our big community partners that we do stuff with. But I have been having some good success with a lot of our businesses around, because that was another area. We have a lot of the schools, and like I said, now the YMCA covered, but I started looking for businesses that would let us come out and talk to their people during, their health fairs, during their safety training, things like that, that we could talk about impaired driving, distracted driving. And so I've been able to go to some of the trade and safety conferences in like August, when that's kind of our slow period, and I interact and kind of sit up and talk to people. And we went to the Oklahoma Safety Council conference in August, and I've got probably a half a dozen new programs to do this fall just from that contact. And then this week I'll be speaking to the career tech teachers at their conference, and so I'm hoping that'll result in even more. We can get some more things going at the technology centers around the state. So that's probably some of my biggest thing that we have going on. I touch base with whoever I can that I think is going to lead us to something that we can have a program. If it's anything related to traffic safety, as I tell them, if we don't already have something, I'll put you something together that meets your needs and gets us out to talk in the community. I work a lot with the troopers with OHP, and they get the word out to their fellow troopers, so that I get a lot of calls to go around the state to do things with them when they have community events, because most of the small communities approach the troopers and they're like, hey, can you come do something? And they're like, okay. And then since we have our equipment and stuff, then they call me. So that's great. That was a source that I was really glad that I got hooked up with, because a lot of that gets us all over the state talking about traffic safety. And I'm always looking, like I said, I'm always looking for somewhere I can go that is underserved, or we don't have it, or something to fill in some of our time that we're a little bit slower during the year. So does that sound about right?
That sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing. I can share a personal story about buy-in with the kids at the YMCA. I didn't really know that Sergeant Yokley was going to be at the YMCA that my kid attended this past summer. But when I picked him up to take him home, he saw a bike rider going down the street with headphones, and he nearly jumped out of his seat had he not had a seatbelt on, talking about how that's really dangerous and he shouldn't do that because he can't hear the traffic around him. So buy-in with the kids, I think, is extremely important in all of our mission, because if they're learning the right lessons now, then they're going to be growing up and implementing those as they join the drivers on the road. So Christy, thank you so much for your work and coming here to talk about it today. Does anyone have any other questions for Christy? All right. And just so you know, Christy does go statewide. So no matter where you're at, if you have any events that you would like her assistance with, you can reach out to her. Her contact information is on our website under Public Information Education and then Local Outreach. So she's always reachable, and please partner with her as much as you can. So thank you, Christy.
Right. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
Right, the next session we're going to talk about is accounting for time. This includes keeping track of hours spent on your OSO project for full-time or part-time staff, or even scheduling shifts for enforcement or PI&E. Here to talk to us today about accounting for time is Lieutenant Christopher Arnall with the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. He's been with OHP for about 25 years. He's been assigned as project director for the OHP overtime and impaired driving liaisons for a little over 4 years. His position is quite unique because he does have those overtime hours as well as the full-time impaired driving liaisons as well. So he's going to talk to us today about his tips to keeping it all straight. Good morning.
Good morning. Like Jacqueline said, I'm with the Highway Patrol. I manage 3 grants with them. we've actually had in the past 2 lieutenants and at times 1 captain and 1 lieutenant that does what I do. So I do it all by myself right now, but I manage 3 grants. It's a IDL grant, a DUI overtime, and an OP overtime. The IDL grant consists of 5 IDLs, which are impaired driving liaisons. That grant pays for their salary, their benefits, in-state, out-of-state travel. And part of the time accountability with the IDL grant is at the end of each month, the IDLs have to turn in several timesheets. They turn in a regular timesheet which is with our department, the Highway Patrol. They also fill out an A87, which is a highway safety NHTSA type timesheet where it accounts for everything that they do every day throughout the month. And then if they work any overtime at all with our DUI grant or our OP grant, then I have their overtime shifts. So in order for me to keep all of that organized, I kind of have a systematic approach, which is what Jacqueline wants me to kind of share of how I do that. But I'll take those regular time sheets, that A87, and then I'll take their overtime sheets, and I'll compare all of those at the end of the month, making sure that when they're working their overtime, they're doing it on a day off, they're doing it on a vacation day, making sure they're not double dipping. Their A87, depending on what they're doing throughout the day, I'm making sure that they are within the guidelines and procedures of the grant. I know a couple of years ago during the pandemic, we had some of my guys were temporarily on our emergency response team with the protests and the riots, so the grant doesn't pay for that. So, looking at the regular timesheet versus their A87, I'm able to distinguish that and able to withhold those hours to where OHP has to pay for those hours that are not within the grant. So, but I also have 2 other grants, DUI overtime and a seatbelt overtime. So in order for me to keep all 3 of these grants, which are all 3 separate funding lines, together, I keep track of it through a binder like this. I have a label on the front. I have 3 of these blue folders every single month with all 3 of those grants that I keep tracking it. I've got the project number, the month, and so forth on that label, as well as electronic folders in my laptop that I keep track as well, because a lot of our timesheets and everything is signed electronically. So I'll save all those into a folder, and then eventually I will print those out and upload them into the Highway Safety Grant on OGX. So as you can tell, this is for the month of July, just for OP only. You can see how thick it is. I think we had probably just shy of 300 timesheets just for that month for just OP. DUI was probably about half or maybe a little over that. So as you can tell, if I'm not organized and have a systematic approach of keeping these, work account or time accountability, then it's going to be very difficult for me to do that. I have 1 IDL, and then I have a secretary that kind of helps me put a second set of eyes on these as we review these timesheets. I keep track of, I think y'all's activity sheet is probably the same as mine, but up here in the corner, you have the project number. So I'll put SB at the end of that project number, and I'll put DUI at the end of that project number. And that helps me to separate those 2 funding lines as I receive those timesheets in each month. The Highway Patrol has 13 field troops, so I have troopers that work these shifts out of 13 troops. I have 13 either lieutenants or secretaries that send me their payroll change as well as these timesheets every month. So I'm able to keep that organized and be able to keep their time accountability by keeping that in folders, electronic folders, and these blue folders. I keep track of that. The time accountability on that many timesheets and why I have to have help to do that is there are a lot of things that troopers will do out there and having that many timesheets that don't fall within the grant. So we have to really watch these, and we try to catch these before it is sent to DPS payroll. Because if it's sent to them before we catch that, then it becomes a paperwork nightmare later when it doesn't fall under the grant. Because you'll have troopers that'll put down stuff like assisted another trooper on a manhunt, assisted another trooper on a pursuit, assisting on a crash. I've even had troopers put down unit maintenance. Those are things that do not fall under the grant. So when we look at time accountability, I look at the activity that they're doing throughout the shift, making sure they're stopping cars, making sure it falls within the grant. And if it does not, then I subtract those hours out off the payroll change form before it's submitted to DPS payroll. So that's kind of the systematic procedure or organization that I do to keep all that straight. You're basically just doing kind of a miniature audit, if you will, when you're looking at these timesheets before it goes off the payroll. And obviously, the more timesheets you have, the more organized you stay, the easier that it is to keep track of all of that. So, so that's how I do things on that. So if anybody has any questions on any of that.
Lieutenant, can you tell us how you assign funds to those 13 different troops? How do you determine which troop gets however much money for the month or the year? So
that's where Amy Graham comes into play for me, our data analyst with highway safety. Also, we talked about the interchange map we talked about earlier. So what I do is each troop has a certain amount of counties within the troop. Amy is nice enough to send me like for instance, on the DUI, I'll get some of the highest DUI fatalities and injury crashes per county, and she's able to divide those counties up. And normally I will let her provide me the top 3 counties of each of the 13 troops. So what I do is I'll tell those troops, I'll say, you need to concentrate the most of your budget in those top 3 counties that are within your troop of the highest DUI fatality rates. Now, some of the troops may have, like for instance, Troop A, which has Oklahoma County, has the highest DUI fatalities and rate. So their percentage may be 22% in the state, but you're talking about Troop I, the Panhandle, they may be below 1% of the fatality rate on DUI crashes in the state. So I use those percentages to divide up the budget. So obviously Troop A, Oklahoma County is going to get a whole lot more budget in the month than what Troop I, the Panhandle, is going to get, because it's obvious that you need to spend most of your budget in those troops in those counties that have the highest DUI rates, to where more overtime is worked towards that traffic safety of that situation. And it goes the same thing with the OP. We're able to get those percentages on seatbelt rates and what counties are unrestrained out of most of their fatalities and injury crashes. And so we talked about that earlier about how great data is, and I use that data in order to separate my budgets.
Great. So I know that there's not another statewide law enforcement agency, especially one who grants with us. So that data-driven approach can absolutely be implemented on a citywide or countywide approach as well. So such as Oklahoma City, I know very well, has different divisions. They could be, you could request help in researching the data for crashes in each division's area, and determining where you really need to focus on getting other officers to help with those overtime. So Lieutenant, thank you very much for sharing that information and best practice, and we appreciate you.
And I'd like to make a comment about Christy. I do work with her quite a bit. I know this don't have anything to do with time accountability, but my IDLs also have to do PI&E events. When Christy talks about the Highway Patrol getting phone calls, Christy has a lot more resources of doing safety programs than what we have. We do have Tahoes and vans, NDUI vans that we can use for that, but when she has the side-by-side and the cones and all that stuff, we're able to connect with her to do those. And we usually connect by going to meetings like Tulsa Safe Kids, Tulsa Safe Communities. Those are areas to where we can partner together and know what's going on and share the ideas and work together. And so that's another thing that we do as well, is work with Christy, and I appreciate her talking about all that. And we have really started probably working together the most over the last year or two, the longer that I've been in there, and trying to do that. And we seem to be getting a lot more requests to doing those things together, which is a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right,
Jack,
next-
I have one thing I wanted to just bring out that
Go ahead.
Chris does so well. He has lots of balls bouncing, if you know what I mean. There's lots of different areas that he covers. The hard thing for our projects is that you have to be sure that these overtime shifts are actually been eligible to be worked. So you have to know how to collect that information to know that this person was actually eligible to work. And a lot of what Chris does is so intricate in that respect, being able to see if a person that's on regular shift is not trying to claim overtime. It can be a tough thing, and he does it very, very well.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
All right. The next portion of this session will be over public information and education. Most grants with us require 2 PI&E items per month. This can include, but it's not limited to, social media posts or community engagement. We really see a lot of social media postings for the PI&E requirement, but that's not what you're limited to. If your agency is already attending a safety fair or going out and talking to a school about seatbelt safety or pedestrian safety, those items can be utilized for that PI&E requirement if you know about it. So our first guest to talk about public information and education is John Stege. He is a retired police officer and has been with the Norman Police Department for 28 years. He's been working in the administrative offices with their grants and other items for about 6 years. Norman has 4 different people involved in their grant. John will be explaining those roles and how they collaborate to provide PI&E to their citizens. Hi, John.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for joining us.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I wanted to kind of talk about how we manage some of the PIE in the police department. We're a mid-sized agency, so we're not quite as complex as the troop, but in many ways we're more complex than some smaller agencies. And so we found that these partnerships that we build, and we've talked about it with OHSO and with ACOG, or excuse me, with the Sheriff's Office, Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office, and with ACOG. We talked about the importance of building partnerships with other governmental entities and non-governmental entities, nonprofits and businesses and community groups. But I think it's also important to remember, let me see if I can mute that. So it's also to remember that we have internal partnerships. So what we do is we have I'm the project director for the grant, and my job's really the complete package. I'm the one that administrates this is really annoying. I'm sorry about that phone ringing. I'll get back to them later. So you have me, I'm the one that makes sure that the grant gets reported in an appropriate fashion. I'm the one that sees all the information. The second thing is that we have a project commander. So this is a member with rank who actually is a supervisor who approves the overtime activity, is aware of the various projects going out, the high visibility enforcement efforts and the PI&E efforts. We also have our PIO, And our PIO's primary responsibility in cooperation with the project commander is to work with our media partners on getting information out there. And then finally, we have a finance officer who's a second set of eyes to make sure that that we're using the funds appropriately, and it's not just one person who's reviewing the timesheets, the expenditures, and things of that nature. So those are kind of the partnerships that we use in order to make the grant work. Some of the efforts that we collaborate on, I will tell you, social media is a big part of it with our PIO. That is absolutely the biggest, the best bang for the buck. It is heavily consumed by our community and members of the community. It's quick, it's rapid. It can be something taken from the trafficsafetymarketing.gov website. It can be something that we're doing internally. And Kelly, you're absolutely right. It is free, 100% free. We also we don't rely much on press releases because there's nothing we get from that we can't get from social media. We found also that developing our own campaigns, as well as using the OHSO, what are they called, Jacqueline? Please help me out. The click it or ticket mobilizations, as well as using the mobilizations, pushing those things out to make the community aware. We have Safety Town, Operation Cadence, No Refusal Weekends. We have a Know Your Limits campaign where we walk around Campus Corner here in Norman and let students use portable breathalyzers to see their level of intoxication. And it's a bit of education and understanding you don't have to be staggering drunk to be too intoxicated. Getting that information out, though, is as important as conducting the high visibility enforcement and the high visibility engagement activities. Making the public aware that we're doing them is equally as important. I'm going to kind of close this up, Jacqueline, by saying one thing. We have used public information like marketing materials, handbills, handouts, things of that nature. While they can be great, they have to be approved through OHSO project manager or program manager. You can't just go out and buy a bunch of things, and there have to be some marketing and some labeling things that go along with it before it can be used. So that's one thing that we have found beneficial, but is a partnership with our program managers. So, any questions?
So I will add on the pamphlet idea. Our office does have some educational materials that you can order for free. We do not have a lot of stock currently, but we are going to be working on getting those printed and back in stock. We have recently moved offices and didn't really have a place to store them quite yet. So now that we're kind of getting settled in our new space, we're going to be looking forward to getting those printed and back in stock. So those pamphlets include a lot of different items: motorcycle safety, impaired driving, car seat safety, seatbelt safety, bicycle and pedestrian safety. So keep in touch with your program manager and request to be informed when those are back in stock, and we will even ship them out to you. So we don't even have to worry about driving to you or anything like that. It is our cost that we ship them to you for you to utilize in your communities. So thank you very much for bringing up those pamphlet ideas. So we really appreciate your partnership, John, and all of the work that you do on your grant. We love your best practice of the collaboration between everyone in your agency to keep everyone informed. So we really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the lovely Chief Don Hyde and Captain Daniel Thurman with us today. They're with the Calera Police Department. Captain Thurman is the project director. He collaborates closely with Chief Hyde, who handles most of their PI&E efforts. Chief Hyde has created a significant community following utilizing social media and in-person events. He is well known around town and even across the state. Both are with us today to talk about techniques they've used to engage the community in their traffic safety efforts. Hi, Chief. There we go. Okay, I can hear you. You're good. It's kind of breaking up just a tiny bit.
How about now?
There we go.
How about that?
Perfect.
Yeah, good. That's what it was. I was connected to Bluetooth. So first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to visit with you. I learned about this about 10 minutes ago. I'm just kidding. I want to encourage everybody, the more that you can interact in this short 5 minutes with your emojis, it will kind of be a fuel booster for me. So I encourage folks to start sending emojis and let them fly up in the air. That'll be kind of handy. Kind of makes me feel like I'm sort of a big deal. I am representing a small department, little bitty, in the state of Oklahoma. Departments defined as that of 15 officers or less make up 88.8% of the departments in the state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma's little bitty in itself. If you start to even attempt to measure the population by just the simple by using the Metroplex of Dallas, there's really no comparison. We use and the social media outlets to get the attention of both pass-through motorists and on a local level. And we haven't had one emoji pop up, Jacqueline, not one. But anyway,
I've seen a couple. You even have a cowboy in the chat.
Okay, cool. So anyway, I'm very sensitive today, so that's kind of one of those things. I need that extra boost. But it's we are undergoing and have been for the last 3 years consecutively the largest construction project that DOT has ever released since its inception financially. Our whole town has taken a turn. It is at this point, 3 years later, does not even look like the same little small town. Population 3,500 and some change, but on an average, we have on a very slow day or an average day, we yield about 32,000 cars a day pass through our town, directly through the middle of our town, with 1 in every 4 of them being a semi. For years, we've been a death trap. It's been fatality after fatality. Lots of local people lost their lives, and lots of pass-through folks, which there's no, one's just as important as the other. But we reach out through using social media to let them know of just as I said, on the last 3 years, the construction and things that are changes in the roadway. Visibility, I think most all of you will agree, is a deterrent for stupidity. Let's call it what it is, or maybe not paying attention. But again, stupidity. If you once you're out there, you see it, you're going to meet 1 or 2 people. You're going to meet the dumbest driver you've ever wanted to meet, or you're going to educate them on why it is important to drive safely. I know somebody just went like that. So yeah, that's good. So it's Jackson. Oh, that's good. Anyway, so we really. We get out this morning, as recent as this morning, got out in one of our school zones. I go live and just letting them know, hey, this is the volume of traffic. It's also a side road that parallels 75. So we have a lot of my very first contact was 55 miles an hour in a 20-mile-an-hour school zone because he was trying to get to the highway. So again, it goes back to reaching out, trying to make an impact, and then utilizing something that's totally free. Something we found out, whether you agree, whether some would agree with it or not, likes to your post versus the little heart emoji to your post. The heart emoji has, other than the color of it, it has more of an impact, and it seems like a trendy part of it is that the numbers are higher. I don't know what significance that means, and as far as hell, my delivery might not even have been such that you understood what I was saying, but we found the hearts versus the thumbs up. So we'll encourage those. Hey, if you see this and you agree with it, or you want to share something on the live feed, throw a heart in there. One of the things that we also have stay involved in, and one of the things that I was supposed to discuss, but I see something shiny, so I take off the other way, was the importance of having a well-known face or presence in the community. We stay very involved in local events, face association with the department and what they see, and I found it to be, and of course I've not actually ever had a shy bone in my body, but I think it's something that the public knows that we are approachable, and that's comforting within itself with the times that we're dealing with. But we have an enormous following for a little bitty department that's just like a little bitty dot on the map with in excess of 10,000 followers, and it's just, we found it to be really beneficial, really super beneficial.
Excuse me, Chief. Excuse me. We have a question from Nicole.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good. I'm sorry.
Come on, Nicole. Hit me with it.
No, continue on.
Okay. Well, I like long walks in the beach, an occasional toddy. Anyway, and certainly don't drink and drive. But with it, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the fact that we kind of one of those things where you come up with a little brainchild, and then you work with your coordinator, program coordinator. Sam back in the day when she was we wrote a grant specific through to obtain a customized trailer with the pedal cars, the impaired vision goggles, and also impairment through marijuana. So we now travel on the Safe Kids network, so to speak, if you will. And Thursday, whether we were supposed to stay in our boundaries, basically based off this grant, I'll ask for forgiveness later, but we're traveling to Pauls Valley to help those folks out up there. So, it's when you believe in something and you're putting it out there, and if you have the resources and you have the time, when someone asks, just go do it. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow in Pauls Valley, helping those folks out. They said, well, why do you approached we're run by a mayor of strong government, and I asked him, and he said, well, that's what you wrote the grant for, is that right? And he said, it doesn't matter where you're helping. And I said, that's exactly right. So, having the support of the council is really, really open as well. Oklahoma Challenge, and sorry, my bad. I don't know what else I could ramble on, and I'm sure I've made no sense, but we could ramble on for hours. Any questions? I'll see if I covered any of my notes.
It looks like Sam has a question.
Go ahead, Sam. Sam.
I am particularly impressed with the number of cameras that Chief Hyde has access to. So won't you kind of...
You talking about these?
Yeah, tell us how you use that for PI&E.
Well, I tell you, I'm having a fantastic hair day. I can tell you that now. We do utilize, we have cameras that are based on different locations from our town hall to some of the businesses. We entered into some agreements with those, utilizing our own secure network, and we're able to monitor the highway from various levels, and also we monitor over 100 cameras, God forbid that anything ever happen or attempt to happen at our school. We watch those continuously. My officers have those on their smartphones to, you know, like I say, God forbid anything ever happen, that we have that type of source. But we're also able to, it assists us in our response time. We're also if we see congestion, we obviously go out and approach that. And we're working really close with the company that has been here for over 3 years, Do It Construction out of Edmond, Oklahoma. And they've been very, very helpful in making sure this project is, well, let's just say they don't keep, they're not like the police. Police gets this new little toy and they kind of want to keep it to themselves, or they're working a case and then that's my case, I don't need your help type thing. But this construction company, they have been keeping us informed as to change, and it's allowed us to have the inform the public and try to make them aware that on their approach through our town that it's done so in a safe manner.
Thank you very much for sharing. Are there any questions, any other questions for Chief Hyde? All right. Chief, thank you very much. We really appreciate all of your work down there in Calera and the surrounding area. We appreciate you helping out other areas that don't have the resources that you do. So thank you.
Thank you.